The expanded university, imaginative and boundless. References are brought to you by our personal collection of books, the Cardass Library.
I face a new challenge unlike any before, and I'm not sure if this time we can win.
Star Wars Vector Prime by R.A. Salvatore, the first novel of the New Jedi Order.
Star Wars fans are aware of the best-selling New Jedi Order book series that began in 1999. The series shook things up in big ways, with deaths, births, and long-lasting consequences on a galactic scale. Most are also aware of the announced Disney Star Wars film that could possibly bear the name. But most do not know that a very different approach to a New Jedi Order was almost undertaken by Star Wars luminary Brian Daley. He had written the popular and faithful trilogy of Han Solo novels published by Del Rey Books, a science fiction and fantasy imprint of Ballantine Books. As well, he had taken on the monumental task of adapting the Star Wars film to radio drama, with new dialogue, scenes, and context added. He would wind up adapting the other two original trilogy films as well. The post-Return of the Jedi novels were written out of sequence. The story of the beginning of Luke's journey to rebuild the Jedi Order took place in the Jedi Academy trilogy, set 7 years after Return of the Jedi. The books were written by Kevin J. Anderson, who had also written Tales of the Jedi comics, and he would tie the books and comics together. He would continue the story of the new Jedi in the Young Jedi Knight series, co-penned with his wife Rebecca. All these stories are loved by most, but they do have outspoken critics.
I don't care.
Could things have gone differently? Here in the New Jedi Order round-robin interview conducted in late 2003, James Luceno reveals some very interesting details about the Star Wars publishing license in the late 80s. Almost a decade later, he was interviewed by Pablo Hidalgo on a Brian Daley tribute panel at Celebration 6. Let's listen.
Doing research for the Essential Reader's Companion, I was pouring through a bunch of old files, and I came across this correspondence dated from '93 from Brian to Lucy Wilson, who was the head of publishing at the time. And there was a lot of interesting things embedded in there. I think what prompted this is that they finally got the go-ahead to do a Return of the Jedi radio drama. But in it, there's a specific correspondence or a specific section where Brian talks about the materials that he has. And the one that is so tantalizing was, ideas for when Del Rey was potentially going to be the licensee that published Star Wars books in the 90s. And not to put you on the spot, because I understand there's no record of this on the Lucasfilm side, but do you recall?
Oh, I sure do.
Oh, boy.
I sure do, yeah. What happened was there was a woman named Risa Kessler, at Ballantine, who was in charge of licensing rights, and she and others at Ballantine Books were not sure that there was a future in Star Wars, and they were really waffling about renewing the license, but they decided they were going to give it one more chance, and they contacted Brian and they contacted me, and we were going to do the first of these spin-off novels. And Brian was going to write a series about the search for and the training of new Jedi. It would have been a very, very different direction than Tim went.
Luceno was then asked why Daley never wrote for Bantam.
Well, actually, let me ask you, was there a contractual limitation or a contractual reason why Brian would not be able to write for Bantam? Was he?
No, he was never asked.
Okay.
He was never asked. He could have. He didn't have any there was no exclusivity with Del Rey.
Regardless, Brian Daley was still held in high esteem as he was asked several years later to return for the ROTJ radio drama, in which, as an aside, he incorporated many EU elements. How might have Mr. Daley approached Luke's building of a Jedi Order? Would he have followed the continuity of the Marvel series? Either way, it would have been different from the wacky Epic Continues proposal by Kenner, and, ultimately, from what we got in reality. Still, it's interesting to speculate.